Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiance, Devin and Jihoon, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, all of my episodes may contain triggering material, so watch with care. Let's watch.
That we had lost the baby. We had a miscarriage.
So, how about you feel?
I'm just very sad. And it's just something that I thought would never happen to me in my lifetime.
It was the hardest thing in my life. I was just very devastated.
Yeah, this is something that is often not talked about or taken care of, which is the grief and the terrible experience of losing your child with a miscarriage. Even if it is early in the pregnancy term, it can be often very devastating. And there are various different reactions from people, but it's really common to have a tremendous amount of sadness and grief. And I think we can understand that. I hope we can understand that. The problem, though, is that society doesn't support it. It's called disenfranchised grief, in which society and friends and family and the internet will just, you could literally go to, so let me contrast two things. You have a 5-year-old child that dies, and tragically, and you are at dinner a year later, and you just say, yeah, this was, the day that my son died. And now people would probably, hopefully, take some time to talk about it or to care about it, and would understand if you cried and talked about it for an hour. It would be normal, and people would think that was okay. But if you have a miscarriage, particularly early on in a pregnancy, and a year later you're at dinner and you're just sad and you're like, yeah, a year ago I had a miscarriage, it wouldn't be uncommon for people to say, oh, well, you can always have another child. Or, well, it happens sometimes, spontaneous, miscarriages, they happen sometimes. What are you going to do? You can always try again. Or, I knew someone that had a miscarriage, or, that kind of thing. Or even just like, oh, I'm really sorry. Anyway, so at work. And people they don't recognize the impact that it can have on people, because as a society, we just don't talk about it. We don't recognize it as a legitimate reason for pain and grief. So I'm not saying everyone that goes through that has that experience, but it wouldn't be unusual for people to have that experience. At the very least, some level of deep grief. Maybe it doesn't last for a long time, but it lasts for a time. It wouldn't be strange to me if Devin and Jihoon grieved this loss for the rest of their lives and cried about it occasionally for the rest of their lives. So we just have to understand that, and I do feel bad for the two of them.
I think it's just something that takes time to heal from.
I'm just sad.
I'm really sad too.
지금 저희 모두 다 힘든 시간을 보내고 있어요. 굉장히 좀 슬픈 일인 것 같아요.
When I see good behavior, when I see healthy behavior, I'm going to point it out. The two of them are expressing their sadness to each other. They're not blaming each other. They're not blaming anyone else. They're not yelling at each other. They're supporting each other. He's bringing her soup, and they're, I think, crying about it. And so it's, extremely healthy behavior. This is what happens when you grieve. It's natural to do that. You have those emotions. You feel them. You express them. You talk about it. Good behavior.
It's just, the stress, and we just had Taeyang, and my body just, for some reason, just couldn't handle it.
Right, and then the other terrifying feeling that a lot of people in Devin's position will feel is, will I ever be able to have a child again? Is this a harbinger of things to come? Am I always going to have a miscarriage? What's wrong with me? These kinds of questions. And that can also compound the pain and the worry. So it sounds like she might be having some of those questions.
There's nothing we can do, really, except just try and focus on the positive.
We need just to be strong. I'll help you.
So it's great that they want to do that. She's saying, there's nothing we can do. We just have to focus on the positive. And he says we have to be strong. Okay, but often those are the kinds of internalized messages from society that will oppress our own grief, that will deny our ability to grieve, that a wave of emotion will overcome us, or we'll want to talk about it, and it'll be perceived as you're being weak, or you're not moving forward, or you're being too negative, which is not usually the case. Grief requires a lot of activity. There's a lot of crying, there's a lot of talking, there's often anger, there's a lot of reminiscing or just mulling over questions in your mind. It's what needs to be done. And I've always thought of it as there's a certain amount of grief points that you have to spend, if you will. And if you don't spend them, you're just putting them off. And eventually you're going to have to spend those points. But if you spend them naturally as they occur to you, particularly in the beginning of the grief process, then you will have spent, 95% of those grief points, and then you will actually be able to move forward. So there's often this ham-fisted or heavy-handed way that is done to people, and then they internalize those voices, and then they try to force themselves to move forward in grief too quickly.
Even though this has happened, I feel like we're much closer, not fighting. It's also helping me realize how much I love you because you've been there for me. You're very supportive of me.
2 thumbs up to that. So it sounds like Jihoon is supportive and been there for her, and he's exhibiting that in this scene. And Devin is recognizing that and saying, I love you and thank you so much. This is good. They went through something difficult. They supported each other. They were good with their emotions. They were okay with their emotions, and it brought them closer together. We don't see that very often on this show, so let's commend them absolutely. 2 enthusiastic thumbs up as they're going through a very difficult time. They were good to themselves. They took care of themselves. They took care of each other, and they bonded over that. That's a very, very good sign. Very good sign for their relationship.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then a verbal appreciation of that, and a verbal thank you, and a verbal I love you. This is great. We don't see this very often. I feel very happy for them. It's sad that they went through the miscarriage, of course, but that they can have each other. They can turn to each other and depend on each other during this difficult time is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
What the?
Oh my God.
I'm coming. Okay, yeah.
Whoa!
May I come in?
Yes, come
Thank
in.
you.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you. Ham.
Ooh.
What's up with the squid mask?
Get out, evil.
I think they were wearing actual dried squid, not a mask, like an actual squid to their face. And I did not know that Korean culture had this aspect. Or Jihoon is just making this up because he can say anything as Korean culture at this point, and the family will believe him. So this is a thing? This has to do with the wedding? Like the groom with his buddies comes to the bride's house and breaks, looks like a gourd or a coconut, brings in these boxes, and then the friends have squid on their faces. I mean, I like it. I like ceremonies.
This bird in Korea means very get along together, very good couple.
Oh yeah.
I am honored to be in a ceremony like this.
This is so special because it's a gesture of peace so that the two families can come together.
And good on Devin's parents for being open and appreciative of Korean culture. Other people on the show, other cast members, will go to another country and be neutral or put it down. We don't have to look that far to see that. For example, Libby's family had a completely different take on another culture. So it warms my heart to see Americans being non-colonialist and appreciative and respectful of other cultures.
Let's get it translated.
So, give me Devin, please. Where is Devin?
You may
I don't
now
know.
search for Devin.
Good luck.
Good luck
I
finding her.
just searched Devin.
You have
Yes.
to find her. I don't know. We don't
Yeah,
know
if
where
you don't
she
find
is.
her, you don't get her.
Where are you? Oh, damn.
I will say I like this this ceremony. It's pretty great. I don't know why it brings a tear to my eye. I guess I just love, and I love weddings. But this practice of he has to, so he goes, they're acting like their home is just her home and the family's home. And so he arrives with his buddies with the masks on and presents these things to the parents. And then he says, "Can I please have your daughter?" And they're like, "Well, you're going to have to find her." And now he has to go find her. I find that delightful.
Bring stuff.
You brought stuff.
Brought stuff. Yeah.
I see two large men wearing these god-awful squid masks, and the smell, imagine like sewage and fish just sitting on a hot deck in the summer.
Yeah, I'll second that. Dried squid, which is wonderful, and me and my family love it, love it, love it, love it. It smells disgusting. And when you open it up, particularly to Americans, white Americans, when I open up bags of squid, or kimchi for that matter, the looks on their faces, because it's not only strong and different and foreign to them, but it instantly permeates the entire space that you're in, kimchi included. And yeah, but I mean, I associate the smell with something good, dried squid and with kimchi. But for them, I understand when they say this smells like what she said, just like, something rotting on a hot tin roof, or rotten socks sometimes. I think that kimchi can be akin to, rotting, really gross. Think of like a 17-year-old boy wearing socks for like 5 weeks straight without taking them off, and he lives in like Florida where there's a lot of humidity. And he's sweating all that goo into his socks. And then he just leaves them and puts them on your face. That can be what kimchi can smell like. But boy, do I love it. As a kid, I used to have kimchi sandwiches. I would just get bread, put kimchi, another piece of bread, eat it. Love it. Still do.
Today was good. I finally feel like Jihoon is proving himself to my family, and things might be looking up. I just hope this means my mom supports my marriage with Jihoon, because it's happening in 2 days.
Oh, your breath smells so bad.
This is me and my wife, like, exactly. I'll eat something along those lines from, Japanese American culture, which has absorbed a fair amount of Korean cuisine. And she doesn't like it.
And so much differences have popped up that I see in both of us. And I feel like the only way to fix my marriage is going back to America for 1 month.
Being stuck inside the apartment together has just been really difficult.
Yeah, so I think a lot of you might be able to relate to this when the pandemic began, and this is March 2020, I think, according to what they said, and everything was shutting down, and you're stuck and they live in a fairly small place. There's not a lot of places you can get away from each other. You have two small kids who want to go outside, they can't go outside. It's a stressful situation for sure, and they're experiencing some conflict. Devin is saying she is realizing they're different in a lot of ways that she didn't realize before, and her solution is to essentially take a vacation to the United States for a month and see her family, I'm guessing. It's not a bad move, get a breath of fresh air. I find that for some couples, when they come to me, one of the problems that they suffer from is that they spend actually too much time together. There's this notion for some couples where they believe that the ideal is that they can live together and work together and spend all their social time together, and they should be okay. There's such a thing as getting sick of someone. And there's also such a thing as distance makes love grow, right? Or what is it? Separation makes love. I'm terrible with idioms. So to live on top of each other and to get annoyed with each other is, it's understandable, especially under the stress of the pandemic. So she's leaving to, give them a breather, which is perhaps a really healthy move.
Yes, I'm going to come back, but you also have to promise me that everything's going to get better. Like, no more fighting. Because it's really affected me, and you know that it's affected me.
Okay, when you're back in Korea, no more grumpy.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. I always appreciate when people participate in the conversation, either in the comments below, on Discord, on Instagram. Well, I don't know if there's much conversation on Instagram, but, I post pictures of my dogs on Instagram or me cuddling with my dogs. I actually posted if you're not on Instagram, I posted a recent picture of myself cuddling with my dog when I was like 2 years old or 1 year old. And so I've always loved animals. But anyway, on the subreddit, on the Facebook fan page, but I implore everyone to be nice to each other. It's very important that our community is safe for people to talk amongst themselves. You can certainly disagree. There's no problem with that, but it's how you disagree, making sure that you're polite. I would just like to think that my community and our community is a nice place and a safe place for everyone, and frankly, for me. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.